Hey, welcome back to Cosmic Rabbit. Last week was our intro episode, and a lot has happened since then. Karl Nell has spoken at the SALT conference. He's a highly decorated and very high-ranking officer within the armed forces. He holds a couple of degrees, a master's and a BS in engineering. So he's got a lot of really great background, very well educated on the topic. Most importantly, he was heading up the UAP task force as he was a director for that, so that was his last position held within that type of field. And he basically just came out and said there is zero doubt, he's 100% sure. So along with the testimony from Karl Nell at the SALT conference, just a few days ago, Representative Robert Garcia from California had added some amendments to the Schumer amendment, and I believe that's going to be initiated for proposal at some point in June, in the next week or so. The issue that I think is going to come up, and other people have mentioned this as well, is that if the first initial attempt to pass this amendment was mainly gutted, what are our chances the second time around of it sticking this time? And all I can really say about that is I'm going to be optimistic. I hope that they do pass the full amendment that both Schumer is reintroducing, as well as the addendum from Robert Garcia. So along those lines, regarding legislation, there have been two conferences that have been going on over the weekend currently. The first one is the Contact in the Desert, and Matt Ford was on Twitter or X yesterday. Basically, he mentioned that they've started a UAP Disclosure Fund, which is amazing. It's a great step forward. Obviously, it's a fund, so you're encouraged to donate. If you can, please do donate. And more importantly, or equally as important, it's a petition to sign your name to push for disclosure. So definitely do that. I will put a link of it in my description. Please, please, please sign that petition. The more people that sign it, the more that Congress will see how big and how important this issue actually is. The other conference, it's the SCU conference. It's the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies. Was a little bit more closed off. They did mention they'd be putting out YouTube videos of the presenters in the coming days, so I will link those in any subsequent episodes if you guys are interested. And for that conference, it's also very important. There were engineers present, there were scientists present, there were former military and defense contractors, just a bunch of really important people doing research within this topic of anomalous phenomena. So definitely check that out once they start putting stuff up on YouTube. If you haven't watched the SALT conference interview with Karl Nell, you should definitely watch it. He goes over he lists a possibility of reasons as to why there hasn't been disclosure, or at least a controlled disclosure. And some of the important ones that I feel talked to me or really kind of stood out for me was that he feels that, or it seems like there's a lack of plan. So government hasn't put together a plan of disclosure, whether it be over several years, how they're going to do it, who's going to do it. He also mentions a potential for societal disruption. He didn't really go much into that. It's pretty self-explanatory, but that was another one of the reasons that he mentioned, that essentially that the government has kind of been dragging their feet about this topic. They don't have a plan, and they are afraid of what might happen within the society, which, I mean, it's possible that not everyone is going to take it in a positive way, and we don't know the extent of what it is that they are not disclosing. He also mentioned toward the end about us possibly not understanding or learning about our new reality. So there has to be some kind of new understanding about how we fit. So it's not just that we've been visited, but possibly there's some very fundamental understanding that we just don't have, and maybe possibly it would be difficult to understand it, accept it, etc. And so that's what he mentioned, and I thought that that was noteworthy. He also mentioned how he believes that we have a moral right and the right to know as a species that there is something else that has been visiting us, a non-human intelligence. He mentioned that there are some unelected people in our government that are already aware of this, and he doesn't see why the rest of humanity why they wouldn't have the right to know this, and so that's why he's also speaking out. Another point that he makes that I think is a good point is for us to be proactive rather than reactive, and so obviously that goes with trying to prevent catastrophic disclosure, because then we're being reactive, obviously. So it sounds like he wants a type of disclosure in where, or this is just my interpretation of what he was saying, is that it would make more sense and it would be probably easier on our society if we are proactive about it and set things in motion about how we're going to disseminate this to the people. And so whether we're putting people in government in to be responsible for that, and possibly doing, surveys and talking to the public about how they feel about this topic or what would scare them, things like that, those conversations are really important to have. And I think that's basically what he was referring to, is that we want to be proactive. And to be honest, I think a lot of people don't even give it a second thought. So if you have people like him, important people from our government, talking about this, and we see that people are now starting to take things a little bit more seriously, then we can start thinking about, how would I react to something like this? Or what can we do to form a more cohesive government or a cohesive society on this? Karl Nell has, like I said, a long list of associations with certain really important companies like Lockheed Martin, for example, and he, as I mentioned, also was the director of the UAP task force at one point. Just all these things that he was involved with make him a very, very credible source. And so I think that information like that coming from him should really be circulating out there, and more people need to see it. And so if you haven't seen it, please do click on the link and watch it. It's about a 20-minute video. You can even kind of speed it up a little bit, but you need to definitely listen to some of those things he points out and reasons why possibly there hasn't been any disclosure at this point. And I do believe that we are working towards setting something like that up. At least that's the way that I'm understanding from the way people are speaking. He makes it a point to mention the fact that this is a global phenomenon. So it's not what a lot of people are saying, like, oh, this just happens in the US. You don't hear people from other countries talking about this, but that's actually not correct. And he mentioned that a few times. He mentioned 2 other countries, I believe it was Israel and Canada. And so this is definitely not just the United States. I know of other countries that have also reported this, mainly Brazil. If you haven't seen Moment of Contact, please do. That story is just incredible. Also, Elizondo had announced that his new book is coming out imminent, August 20th, so you can pre-order your copy. I will put a link in that below as well. I'm really excited. I obviously already pre-ordered it. I'm looking forward to reading it. Let me know if you guys want me to cover what was presented at both of those conferences that are going on this weekend. Like I said, it's the SCU conference, which is the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies. I can definitely do an episode on that, and do an episode on the Contact in the Desert as well, and their talks or whatever was covered over there as well. So that's it for this episode, guys. I do urge you to watch that SALT conference interview. It is jaw-dropping. And once you watch it, please do tell me, let me know what you think in the comments. I want to know how you reacted to that, what you think about what he said, and the reasons why there hasn't been disclosure. And he also goes over why he thinks that they would be naive of us to think that they would be entirely altruistic or entirely not. So that's kind of an interesting topic that we'll have to go into. But definitely watch that. Please subscribe to this channel and hit the like button if you liked today's episode. See you in the next one.